Below us are the waters of the Worsbrough Reservoir. It's fed by the River Dove and comprises a major part of the Worsbrough Country Park. The River Dove also feeds Worsbrough Mill. It's been a working mill since the 17th century and, miraculously probably, it still is. The River Dove is a gentle stream that is nevertheless full of life. The Dove meanders across the Dearne Valley and it joins the River Dearne some miles further east. Indeed, Worsbrough Mill and Country Park has always been a popular visitor attraction that is notable for being both a working example of industrial archaeology and an important local wildlife site. It's also got a working museum. This is Experience Barnsley, Barnsley's main museum. It's in the town hall and it's the hub of the recently reorganised museum service, which is responsible for running Worsbrough Mill and Country Park. So, what's the history of the mill and how did it become such a popular place to visit? Let's ask Paul Stebbing of the museum service. Paul, Worsbrough Mill, I find it difficult to follow. It's a mill and it grinds corn, then it isn't a mill and it falls apart, and then it is a mill again. Are you following this? Why and what happened to make that happen?
Well, there's been a mill at Worsbrough since the 11th century, at least the 11th century. We find the first reference in the Domesday Book of 1086. We don't know the exact location of that first mill, but it was somewhere along the River Dove.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a few centuries, and the older mill as we know it today was built about 1625. The miller back in the 17th century would have actually lived with his family in that old mill building, two-storey building that still survives to this day.
Yeah.
And it houses the water wheel.
Yes. One of the few working water wheels actually doing the job it's meant to.
Yeah.
It's not just cosmetically turning round, is it? First thing, as you look at it now, it looks, well, why put a water mill here apart from the fact there's water? You know what I mean? What about carrying the corn in and taking the flour out? How easy was it? Was it all done by blackmail?
Certainly in the early days, yes. As time went on, technology got better and techniques got better. But it certainly wasn't an easy way of making a living.
I can imagine. So how come it got saved when many historic buildings just fall by the wayside?
I think back in the 1970s, South Yorkshire County Council could see that this building had potential from an educational point of view and as a visitor attraction. So it was saved and it was converted into a museum, eventually taken over by Barnsley Metropolitan Borough Council, and the interest and visitor numbers have continued to increase ever since.
The council took a bit of a gamble with it, didn't it? I mean, it might have had 3 visitors a day, at some time, or even less than that.
There is a range of products which continues to be popular. I bought some flour just before Christmas. Makes fantastic cakes. We have school groups in constantly, a steady flow of visitors, and the future looks bright.
So in fact it's earning its keep, isn't it?
It is. Surrounded by a fantastic country park as well.
Absolutely. And a big lake and lots of flora and fauna.
A great place to spend a quiet weekend.
Well, we'll be going there shortly, but you are part of... I came in here expecting to find a mayor and councillors and all kinds of things, and heck, it's a museum. What happened there?
Well, I first came to Barnsley in 2007 as the archives officer and was thrust straight into the Experience Barnsley project, which was Heritage Lottery funded to create this fantastic museum telling the story of Barnsley alongside a state-of-the-art archive centre whereby people can come in and use the precious archives that we've got in our care.
That's great, but I'll tell you what, while we're here, let's not miss the opportunity. Show us some of your best exhibits here.
Okay.
We're looking at some of the exhibits, shall we say, here in the ex-town hall. Now, this is absolutely amazing. Passions and pastimes, but it's all above board, isn't it?
It
There's
certainly
nothing
is.
naughty.
No, nothing naughty. I mean, most people in Barnsley, like in most places, had hobbies and ways of escaping the pressures of modern life, and this reflects Barnsley, kind of activity in Barnsley. So,
now, just looking at what looks like a bit of a pad, 2 or 3 paddles with long handles. What are they?
they're Nipsey sticks.
Nipsey sticks.
Nipsey sticks.
Yeah, I'm a lot wiser. So what do Nipsey sticks do or did or whatever?
Nipsey was a very, very popular local game where people would create these huge wooden sticks and hit a Nipsey ball from a brick.
Right, not totally unlike Nur and Spell then.
It's very similar to Nur and Spell, yes.
Well that's something that's fallen out of fashion a bit now, isn't it?
It has, although
does it have its anoraks?
I'm told that it does still continue.
Yes.
To an extent, there are some local people who still play it, but great to have it incorporated into the museum.
And an original This Is Your Life book. What's the history behind that?
Yes, this is local umpire Dickie Bird. This is Your Life book.
Oh, and
sitting
there he is. There's the great man himself.
alongside his bust and a cricket ball. Yes.
Well, it's nice to have something personal here, but that's not all. If we move on just a little bit, what have we got here?
Well, at the far end here, we've got a fantastic portrait of Mark Jones.
The tragedy.
Yes, one of the Busby babes who tragically was killed in the Munich air disaster.
He was one of the casualties, wasn't he?
He was, but very, very well remembered locally and celebrated.
And still remembered, which is wonderful. You know, it's so good to see
That's right.
his picture here.
Along with Tommy Taylor, of course.
Yeah.
In fact, shall we go out to the other side?
Yeah.
And see what's in the other...
Now, looking in this display, I recognise that hat. It looks very television inspired.
I think you'd be right. It belonged to legendary local figure Stan Richards, who of course appeared in Emmerdale for many years as Seth Armstrong. And when we were putting together this museum, his family approached us and donated this. So fantastic to have it as one of the centerpieces.
Oh, that's great. I mean, you know, he sort of plays a character that you would expect to prop the bar up and drink pints and pints of real ale.
Yes.
But in fact, Stan's most favourite drink was whiskey. I had 1 or 2 little tipples with him now and again, and it's nice to see something to remember him by. You've got other things, though, that we must look at. Another This Is Your Life book. Now, this is somebody who I remember being on stage.
Oh, the great Charlie Williams.
Williams, yes.
Again, when we were putting the museum together, his family approached us and gave us not only the This Is Your Life book, but a lot of papers relating to his career.
Yes.
Which we've got here for the public to look at and enjoy.
We've kind of gone beyond his sort of humour now, haven't we? We cannot repeat jokes that he did and were funny at the time.
Very true.
But a great Yorkshireman.
A great Yorkshireman, absolutely.
Let's say that.
And to bring it right up to present day, we've got a purple Ronnie greeting card designed by local Millie Johnson.
That's excellent. So it doesn't all go to things that are way back in the past, does it?
No, right up to present day. Anything that might have a local flavour, a local theme, we want to tell the story of Barnsley.
That's lovely. Thanks to Paul Stebbing for telling us about the mill and for the conducted tour of the museum. And now it's time to return to Worsbrough Mill and to talk to the people who work there. It takes a lot of work to provide a happy environment for visitors, one where they can walk. Take small children, investigate the wildlife, or just enjoy the atmosphere. The miller's tea rooms and the mill shop are the places to do this, so I'm going to talk to Adam Hawksby, who manages the tea rooms. You know, if you're like me, what you need is when there's something like this where you can have a good brisk walk, there's plenty of very safe footpaths which you don't stumble over, and there's some fantastic things to see, like the mill itself, but there's also a pretty good cafe. And I'm going to be talking to the manager now. So, Adam, what on earth made you want to come to a place like this and open a cafe?
I trained as a chef when I left school, and I went into distribution for quite a long time and did 18 years as a manager in distribution. While sat in a tea room in Torquay, spoke about
as you
it to my
do,
wife, and decided that that is something I wanted to do and to follow sort of a dream of when I left school, being a chef, owning my own business. So we took one look on businesses for sale, and we saw the site. We came to view it on the Saturday when we got back and put an offer in on the Monday.
It was
I
want that.
It was just the right business, the right time.
So how do you go about setting it up? Because it's not exactly anybody's going to stop on the road. Is it? They're going to have to want to come to Worsbrough for you.
Initially that was a problem, but we use social media quite a lot. We use Facebook, Instagram. We're very active on that, and word of mouth. It is a busy site. A lot of people that we've met over the last 2 years of owning it don't realise the site's here. But once they do, we get a lot of repeat.
You've got coming, and that's what makes it worthwhile, isn't it? So, what do you offer here?
So we offer
because it isn't a restaurant.
It's not a restaurant as such, no. But we do offer light meals. We offer hot breakfasts. We offer locally sourced coffee, which is roasted in Bradford, in Shipley, and that is it's roasted unique for us. There's nobody else in the area that's got that supply. We do loose leaf teas. We use the flour from the mill to bake his own cakes. Around 85% of our cakes are homemade by the staff on site. We do additional things to a normal tea room. We open on the first Friday of every month and have a bistro night as a restaurant. So
I've never been here when you've been closed.
we open 7 days a week.
Yeah.
We open 9:30 or 4 every day.
Yeah.
The plan is this year, 2020, is that we're going to run a trial in May to open later on an evening and align it with the car park to maybe shut it around about 7:30.
Right.
If that's successful, then the summer months we'll have a summer opening later.
Yeah.
So the park will be open a little bit later.
Yeah.
The site will, and we'll be looking at doing pizzas.
That's
on an
great.
evening.
Yeah. Why not? More power to your elbow. I might just come for one of those. It's part of something that's run by the auspices of the council, which you are not. Is it sometimes difficult when people think you're part of the council just because you're on this site?
It can be, but we are an independent family business.
Yes.
So some feedback sometimes is that we do get mixed up with the council and the milling team on site. But to be quite honest, over the last 12 months, all the staff and the cafe staff have become quite entwined in the activities that are going on. So for instance, the farmers markets that we've been involved with, we've put a stall down there ourselves. We've done a Christmas market, we've done breakfast with Santa, a carol concert, and things hopefully 2020 are going to carry on and working together, do Penistone Show and other things like that.
So your eyes are set on expansion.
We are definitely set on expansion. We're looking at Doncaster as another venue this year as well. So, and then an extension to the building. Hopefully, if the shop moves around the corner, then it looks like we can expand into the section. Which is previous to the shop.
Fingers crossed that there's no grade gets in your way, because I would think if it was kept looking like that, you'd have no problems at all.
No, it's a grade 2 listed building, but we planning has gone ahead.
Oh, that's
we can
good
go
news.
that way. So.
That's good news. Right, folks. So don't forget, if you're coming to the mill, it's worth it. If you're coming just for a walk or to shall we say, walk the dog as it were, don't worry, you can come into the cafe because it's dog friendly. Worsbrough Mill is a particularly enjoyable spot for young children. For example, it has this classroom building where parties from local primary schools are regular visitors, and school children are introduced firsthand to the history, technology, wildlife and ecology of the mill. Public education is an important part of the mill's activities. You know, there's a lot kids learn here. It is like a school, but very enjoyable. They can come at any time by prior notice. In fact, some of them bring the whole school here to learn. But it's not just a case of learning facts and figures. There's other things they can learn, like how to play together. Do you want to see what I mean? Yeah, there's a great deal to learn here, and the children can come, as I said, and have lessons here. But that's not all. There's actual place for them to... Hey, that's a good one for the outtakes. Yes, it's not just a case of classroom learning here, although there's plenty of it available. What happens as well is that there is a playground area. The kids can relax, run off the excess energy, and generally enjoy the whole day. It's time to take a closer look at the mill itself. Going through the mill door feels like entering another century. In the 1950s, when this photograph was taken, the mill was badly in need of major repair work to be carried out. Indeed, its whole future was very much open to question. But in 1974, the site was taken over by the newly created South Yorkshire County Council, and renovation was carried out. After more local government reforms, the South Yorkshire County Council was abolished in 1986. And responsibility for Worsbrough Mill and numerous other projects, to be fair, was given to Barnsley Metropolitan Borough Council. The country park surrounding the mill covers 240 acres, of which 60 make up the reservoir. The reservoir has no hydraulic or historic connection with the mill. It was built in 1836 to provide water for the new Dearne Canal, a fragment of which is still preserved on site. The Dearne was Barnsley's second canal. It was completed in 1804 and closed in 1961. Until the coming of the canals, local coal was rarely transported further than a few miles away from the mine because it was so difficult to move by road. Much more of the canal is visible higher up between Womwell, Elsecar and Swinton. Canals opened up trade possibilities in the 18th and 19th centuries. Barnsley coal was sent by way of Swinton locks to Lincolnshire, but other cargoes like lime, limestone, pig iron, timber and corn were transported as well. Corn from Lincolnshire farms came in the other direction to be ground at the mill, and the flour sent to places opened up elsewhere by the canal network. Some well-trodden footpaths with named walks encircle the reservoir and run parallel to the path of the River Dove, little more than a small stream at this point. Visitors seem to enjoy this combination of peaceful water and woodland as a pleasant background for a family walk. Exercising the dog. Oh, and any reason you want to be out there. But the reservoir and greater park area are also a favourite haunt of some pretty serious amateur naturalists and birdwatchers. The marshy end of the reservoir is an ideal habitat for crack willow. And if you want to be serious about that, that's Salix fragilis. The trees provide cover for a variety of birds of all kinds, chiffchaffs and warblers in the spring and summer, great tits and long-tailed tits in the winter. While these reed beds are home to marsh tits, reed buntings, reed warblers and sedge warblers. There are also tree creepers with their cleverly camouflaged feathers that blend in with the tree bark, and nuthatches as well. These are small birds often present in the reed beds, but difficult to spot and usually identified more by their songs. Not so out on the open water, though distance usually requires the use of binoculars. Large flocks of Canada geese breed here in the summer, and the chicks grow pretty quickly in this agreeable environment. Whilst a miscellany of ducks, including little flocks of pochard and widgeon, join the ever-present mallard and tufted duck, along with herons, great crested grebes and gulls. Well, we're coming to the end of our visit to Worsbrough Mill and Country Park. Hope you've enjoyed it. But what we haven't done here is look at actually what this building was for in the first place. Get the word mill, that's it. What's a miller? Grinds corn. Let's go and talk to him. Simon, nice to see you. Thanks for inviting us in here.
No problem.
Something you're passionate about, obviously. What's the history behind the mill? Because it was a mill, then it wasn't and it fell apart, and now it's a mill again, you know.
Well, there's been a mill on this site since about 1625. So it was a mill for over 300 years. And then in the late 40s, 50s, started to fall into decline. It had been an animal feed mill for part of the time prior to that. And then in the 70s, it was renovated by South Yorkshire County Council as a mill museum. And then about 6-7 years ago now, Barnsley Metropolitan Borough Council decided to set up a flour business. And so the flour business now, this year, it looks like we're going to be milling around 20 tonnes of flour.
Great stuff, and more power to the council's elbow, because they've saved a good thing. It's not that they're just wanting to make a profit, is it?
No,
they want
exactly.
people to see it, and here you are. So we've got this wonderful machine turning away. Can we have a look around and see what you've got?
Yeah, of course.
So first of all, this looks like it's part of the main thing.
So this is the stone floor that we're looking at here. So it's not a stone floor made of stone. It's a stone floor because it has the mill stones on it.
Yeah.
And here we've got 3 sets of stones potentially, although 2 are set up for milling.
Yeah.
We mill on the left-hand set, the furthest set from ourselves, and they're made of French burr stone, which means that when we mill the whole meal, we can then sieve that whole meal to make white flour, which is our biggest seller.
Yeah.
The set nearer to us are a different stone, they're grit stone, and they make a lovely wholemeal, but that then can't be processed.
Yeah, I can imagine that, and it's always been something you millers have been fighting against, hasn't it? Getting the absolute correct stone and having it dressed just as you want it.
Yes, you have to have them dressed. We get ours dressed every couple of years, just to make sure that the flour being produced is of the highest quality we can make. But yes, it is a sort of has been a constant battle for people.
I can imagine. Now it's turning and it's pretty hefty. What's your power source?
We take water from a mill pond just at the back of the mill here. When we're milling, we use about 105 tonnes of water an hour. Currently, we've just got in like a demo mode, so we're only ticking over here, so it's nowhere near the amount of water we'd normally use.
Yeah. It's free, isn't it?
To come in,
Yeah,
we have a licence
Yeah,
because
to
we're
use.
using it, so
Yeah.
it's not completely free, but it's a lot cheaper than other power sources, let's put it like that.
Right. What did make you as a person want to be a miller?
About 11 years ago now, I worked in Cumbria, and I had a friend, one of the parents at the school that I taught at, and he was a miller in a mill up there, and he rang me up and said, Simon, have you got some spare time? And I said, why? And he said, because I need someone to bag flour for me. So I said, no problem at all. I went down there, did a day a week for about a year, and during that time he would say, oh, can you just watch the mill for me? I need to nip out. Oh, can you just turn the mill off for me? Can you just start the mill for me? And I loved it.
You're
At
a bit
that time,
self-taught, are you?
I was taught by him.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back into education because it wasn't financially enough for me. And then ended up here, having seen the job advertised. It's my dream job. And I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity about 18 months ago.
Yeah. I won't say it so they can hear up in Barnsley, but you'd do this as a hobby, wouldn't you?
If I had enough money, I'd do it for a hobby.
Very, very politically well put. So, can we have a look around at, because it's on 2 floors.
Yep.
This is the main part, the main part, which is the mill as such, isn't it?
Well, this is where the stones are. The actual machinery that drives it is actually below here,
yeah.
because the water wheel powers the main machinery. The only thing it powers that you can see here are the stones going round and the great shaft.
Good thing they're in a drought this year.
Definitely, low water is our biggest problem.
Yeah,
Definitely.
let's move down to the next, not floor, but there's obviously quite a few things happening. I'm out of my depth here. I see things and I don't know what they're for. I don't know what they do. You can enlighten us.
Yeah, I can. So first of all, we've got 2 more sets of stones. Now these don't work currently. They're not. The machinery downstairs isn't connected, but these were put in about 1840. And they were powered by a James Watt steam engine originally.
Oh, right.
We have a replacement engine which isn't connected, as I say, so they're there for demo purposes. Then behind us we have an oat roller, which does exactly what it says. It rolls
oat roller.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, this isn't functional. We don't roll oats on site here. And then behind you is probably the most
Looks like
important.
an organ.
It's a bit like an organ. It's actually a huge rotating sieve. And this is what we use to make white flour. So the wholemeal flour that comes off the mill, it's taken all the way upstairs and then comes down through and into this machine, which rotates. And as it rotates, it sieves out the white flour, which most people want, from the middle part of the grain and from the bran, which is the outer part. And they're all 3, in fact, are collected downstairs.
Right. Good. Is downstairs next? I do see you've got another floor, but
that's private access.
That's private access.
That's the sofa, the minibar. No, that's grain storage.
That's for you to know and us to guess at.
It's storage, basically.
Right.
It's not very exciting.
Join us downstairs, will you? Because it's going to take me a while to get there.
Yep.
Looks like it's about the end of the process, This is flour coming down. I'm assuming it's gone through the process, and this is the final bagging.
This is the final bagging for white flour. So the first 3 shoots in front of us are the shoots from the separator above. So this is the final place for white flour, and for the middle part and for the bran. Right. But the final part for flour straight off the mill is through this doorway here.
Tell you what, let's go and have a look at that while we're at it. Well, this is the bottom or business end of the water mill, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's happening here?
So the machinery is being driven by the water wheel. So the cogs here are all powered through by the water wheel, which is the other side of the wall there. The most important ones, in some ways, the ones that drive the stones, are the small, fast-moving, what we call stone nuts. Stone nuts. And through there is a spindle which goes up, and the top stone, which is the one that moves upstairs, sits on top of that spindle.
Yeah, they're like gear wheels, but they're made of wood, aren't they?
They are made of wood. Do you know why they're made of wood?
I do not know.
Oh, go on, have a guess.
Because the metal ones were not manufactured at the time that water wheels started.
Good guess, but no, possibly the right answer. But now it's because if there's a problem with the machinery and the stones get stuck or the water wheel gets stuck, the wooden teeth break, and you can replace the wooden tooth more easily than an entire metal cog.
A whole wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So that sounds a particularly good idea.
Yeah.
One thing that does strike me as being interesting, a stone sink.
Well, this would have been, at one point, the miller's house. You might have noticed we've got two fireplaces.
yeah.
So the miller and potentially his family may well have lived in here.
The kitchen,
Now,
possibly.
whether that's a Victorian add-in, I don't know, but it's. I would think it goes back to those sorts of times. I don't know. I don't think the water works anymore, and I certainly don't wash my hands there.
Understood. Now, moving back along to the far end,
Yep.
you were mentioning that you, at one time, you had a very old, what I should imagine would be an atmospheric steam engine here.
I'm going to take your word on that one.
This looks more like a steam engine from late Victorian times.
This is a replacement engine. The original engine stopped working somewhere in the 1920s. And this is a replacement engine from a different mill. It still works. We have a couple of volunteers who come once a month from April to October to start it up, to keep it running, to show that this part of the heritage is still in place and would still work.
So, if you come on certain days, you can see the steam engine working then?
Yep, it tends to be, he says, trying to remember back to last year, third Sunday. Might be the second Sunday, but you can look on our website for further details.
There you go. The website is
Worsbrough Mill.
Worsbrough.org.
No, I think it's .co.uk.
.co, right.
And if you search for Worsbrough Mill, it will come up.
You'll find it. The only thing we haven't talked about now is what's immediately in front of us, and I can see more gear wheels.
Yeah, that's the machinery that used to drive those two sets of stones upstairs, but it's not
right.
connected anymore to the steam engine.
Yeah.
So it's sort of there again, just for demonstration purposes, to show people what was there and how it used to work.
Yeah. Thanks very much indeed for your time. I know you've got to be cleaned up because although it's a water mill, it's actually almost like doing a steam engine. You know, you need another couple of hours to prepare it ready
It is.
to go,
I'm
don't
going to
you?
be milling later on today, and it's going to take me probably half an hour or so to get sorted before we can start milling. Yeah, and then at the end of the day, you have to clean it up again.
So there you are, our last bit of the mill with the miller. That tour of the mill was the perfect ending to a fascinating visit. Worsbrough Mill and Country Park has so much to offer to so many different people and with different interests, from toddlers to grandparents, so that it seems as if we only have just scratched the surface. If you haven't visited it, you don't know what you're missing. And if you have, come again and become one of the regulars. It's a piece of industrial and natural heritage that's well worth preserving. So, goodbye until the next visit to another example of the natural and industrial heritage of the Dearne Valley.